Welcome to our deep dive, into the power of moments for friends and family. You've given us quite the task unearthing the best tips from Chip and Dan Heath on, making life's moments more meaningful. From birthdays and vacations to even chores, this guidebook is packed with interesting ideas, and we're so excited to unpack it all.
I think what's really intriguing about the Heath brothers' approach is that they don't just offer a list of tips.
Right.
They provide a framework for understanding why certain moments stand out,
Yes.
while others fade away. They draw on research in psychology and behavioral economics to explain how we can elevate everyday experiences and create memories that truly resonate.
I love that getting into the why behind the what. So to kick things off, let's dive into one of the first topics the guidebook tackles: birthdays. They start by highlighting how different cultures mark milestone birthdays. Here in the U.S., we tend to focus on those birthdays that grant new freedoms, 16 and driving 18 and voting 21 and,
Yeah.
but other cultures have entirely different ideas about what makes a birthday significant.
Right. And that's the first insight here. Cultural norms shape our perceptions of what's worth celebrating. For instance, in Nigeria, the milestone birthdays are 5, 10, and 15. In Holland, it's 15, 20, and 25. And in Japan, they celebrate those considered the luckiest birthdays at ages 3, 5, and 7.
It makes you wonder, are we overlooking certain milestones that might be meaningful in our own lives? But it's not just about when we celebrate, it's also about how we celebrate. The guidebook encourages us to break the script when it comes to birthday traditions.
Exactly. Breaking the script is all about introducing an element of the unexpected, something that deviates from the norm and makes the moment stand out. Instead of the usual cake, why not try something different?
Like what? Give us some examples.
Well, in China, they eat long life noodles for birthdays. The longer the noodle, the longer your life happens. And in Australia, they have sprinkled covered fairy bread, which I have to admit sounds pretty delicious. Even something as simple as a food tradition can become a powerful symbol if it's tied to a deeper meaning.
It's not just about the food, though, is it? What are some other ways to break the script when it comes to birthdays?
In Russia, handwritten cards with heartfelt messages are highly valued. It's a beautiful example of how a seemingly small gesture can carry a lot of weight when it comes from a place of genuine thoughtfulness. It's about putting in that extra effort to make someone feel seen and appreciated.
That resonates with me. I always feel so touched when someone takes the time to write a heartfelt message. It feels so much more personal than a generic greeting. But the guidebook doesn't stop at birthdays, right? It also delves into the fascinating world of coming-of-age rituals.
Absolutely. Coming-of-age rituals are a powerful way to mark the transition into adulthood, and they vary drastically across cultures. Some are fairly tame, like the Inuit tradition, where young boys and girls go on hunting and fishing trips with their fathers to learn essential skills and take on more responsibility.
That sounds like a great way to foster independence and a sense of accomplishment.
Right. And then you have the Amish tradition of Rumspringa, where youth are encouraged to explore life outside their communities before deciding to commit to the Amish way of life.
That's such an interesting concept. It's almost like a try before you buy approach to adulthood. But I know some coming-of-age rituals can be pretty intense.
They can be. We won't dwell on the more extreme examples, but the book does mention things like tooth removal in Kenya and land diving on Vanuatu. These rituals, while seemingly dangerous, are designed to test courage and signify readiness for the challenges of adulthood.
Those are definitely a bit too intense for me. But out of all the coming-of-age stories in the book, there's one from the Cherokee tribe that really stuck with me. It's about a boy who's blindfolded and left alone in the woods overnight as part of his initiation into manhood.
That's a powerful story. It highlights how even in the absence of formal rituals, we can create experiences for young people that foster independence, resilience, and trust. The boy in the story had to confront his fears and rely on his inner strength, knowing that his father was nearby, but wouldn't intervene unless absolutely necessary.
It's a beautiful illustration of how challenge and support can go hand in hand to create a truly meaningful moment of growth. So even if we don't have specific coming-of-age ceremonies in our own culture, we can borrow from these traditions and find ways to mark important transitions in our kids' lives, right?
Yes, precisely. It's about finding ways to acknowledge those moments when our children are stepping into new roles and responsibilities. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It can be something as simple as a special dinner, a heartfelt conversation, or symbolic gift that represents this new chapter in their lives.
I love that, finding those simple but meaningful ways to acknowledge those milestones. But beyond these big, often once-in-a-lifetime moments, the guidebook also provides a wealth of practical tips for elevating everyday family moments. And that's what I'm really excited to dig into.
Me too. This is where the Heath brothers' framework for creating peaks really comes into play.
Yeah.
Peaks are those moments that stand out in memory because they involve elements of surprise sensory stimulation or heightened emotion.
Hmm.
And the great thing is we can create peaks even in the most ordinary of circumstances.
So how do we do that? Give us some examples. I'm ready for some actionable tips here.
Well, one of the simplest but most effective ways to create a peak is through the power of surprise. The Heath brothers talk about the unexpected yes. It's those times when you break from your usual routine and say yes to something spontaneous and delightful.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does that look like in practice? Paint a picture for us.
Imagine this, your child begs you for a third gumball machine instead of just one. Your initial instinct might be to say no, but what if you surprised them and said yes? Or maybe your child wants to style your hair in a crazy way. Instead of shutting down the idea, embrace the silliness and let them have at it.
I can already see the potential for some hilarious and heartwarming moments there. It's about letting go of control and embracing the unexpected, right?
Exactly. It's about creating those little bursts of joy that break up the monotony of everyday life and create lasting memories. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate or expensive. It's the thoughtfulness and spontaneity that matter most. Another great example is reframing the way we think about souvenirs.
How so? I'm always a sucker for a good souvenir.
Instead of seeing them as just random trinkets, what if we reimagine them as treasure chest items? Each item becomes a tangible memory of a special trip or experience. It's a way to infuse everyday objects with meaning and sentimentality.
That's a great way to shift your perspective. It's not just a snow globe, it's a reminder of that magical family vacation to the mountains. It's a way to keep those memories alive long after the trip is over.
It really is. And these treasure chest items can become conversation starters, prompting you to share those stories and relive those special moments with your loved ones. Speaking of creating peaks, the Heath brothers also emphasize the importance of stretching, which involves setting challenges for yourself and your family that foster a sense of pride and connection.
This sounds interesting. It seems counterintuitive that adding challenges would make life more meaningful. Give us some examples of what this stretching looks like in practice.
One example that really stands out is a karate dojo, where the instructor has a unique body shake advancement ritual. When a child earns a new belt, the instructor shakes their hand so vigorously that it almost knocks them over.
Wait, seriously, that sounds a little intense for a celebration. What's the thinking behind that?
It might seem unusual, but it's actually a brilliant way to create a peak moment. The physical intensity of the handshake becomes a tangible representation of the effort and accomplishment involved in earning that new belt. It's a moment of pride and recognition that the kids remember long after the ceremony is over.
I can see how that would make a lasting impression. It's not just a handshake, it's a symbol of all the hard work and dedication they put in. And it probably creates a strong sense of camaraderie among the students as well.
Exactly. It's a shared experience that binds them together and reinforces the values of perseverance and resilience. And, these challenges don't have to be physical or involve intense rituals. They could be simple goals that you set as a family.
Like what? Give us some ideas for how we can incorporate this stretching concept into our own family life.
It could be something as simple as committing to cooking dinner together once a week, learning a new skill together, or even just taking a family bike ride every Sunday. The key is to find something that pushes you slightly outside your comfort zone and requires teamwork and collaboration.
So it's about finding those opportunities for shared growth and accomplishment. It's about working towards something together and celebrating those small victories along the way.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And those shared experiences, even the challenging ones, become the stories you tell and retell, further strengthening your family bond. Now, shifting gears a bit, the guidebook also dedicates a significant portion to the power of meaningful conversations within families and friendships.
This is so important. We can get so caught up in the busyness of life that we forget to really connect with our loved ones on a deeper level. So how do we cultivate those meaningful conversations? Does the book offer any guidance on this?
The Heath brothers suggest using prompts and questions to spark deeper connections and create opportunities for vulnerability and reflection. It's about moving beyond small talk and creating space for genuine sharing and understanding.
I love that. It's about being intentional about the conversations we have rather than just letting them happen by chance. What are some examples of these conversation prompts that we can use?
One simple but effective prompt is called Pits and Peaks. At the end of the day, each person shares the best and worst parts of their day. It's a great way to get everyone talking and sharing their experiences, both positive and negative.
That's a great idea. It's a way to acknowledge both the highs and lows of everyday life and creates an opportunity for empathy and support. And it can be adapted for different age groups, right?
Absolutely. For younger kids, you can keep it lighthearted by asking fun questions like, what superpower would you most like to have? Or what's your favorite kind of bean? These silly questions can actually lead to some surprisingly insightful conversations and give you a glimpse into your child's world.
I love those. They're playful, but also encourage kids to think creatively and express themselves. And for older kids, I imagine the conversations can delve into more complex topics.
Right. The guidebook suggests tackling issues like social dynamics, peer pressure, and even current events. These conversations might be more challenging, but they're crucial for helping teenagers navigate the complexities of adolescence and develop critical thinking skills. It's about creating a safe space for them to process their experiences and share their thoughts and feelings without judgment.
That's so important. It's about being that listening ear and providing guidance without being preachy or dismissive. Now, I know the guidebook also emphasizes the importance of breaking out of our routines and trying new things. They call this the Saturday surprise.
Yes, this exercise is all about shaking things up and creating a sense of spontaneity and adventure. It could be anything from taking a spontaneous road trip to trying a new restaurant to exploring a part of your city you've never been to before. The key is to do something outside of your normal routine and embrace the unknown.
I love the idea of injecting a bit of adventure into our weekends. Routine can be comforting, but it can also lead to stagnation. So, what are some of the most memorable Saturday surprises from the book? What really resonated with you?
One story that really stood out was about a family who took a spontaneous trip to visit their kids who had moved out of state. On a whim, they decided to drive through the night, arriving at their kid's doorstep early in the morning. It was a completely unexpected visit that created a moment of pure joy and surprise for everyone involved.
I can just imagine the looks on their kids' faces. That's such a heartwarming story. It's a reminder that sometimes the most meaningful moments are the ones we don't plan for.
Exactly. And during that visit, they ended up having a magical moment spotting an owl in the backyard, which tied back to a beloved childhood book, Owl Moon, that they used to read together as a family. It was a beautiful example of how a simple act of breaking the script can lead to a cascade of meaningful experiences.
It's like a ripple effect of connection and shared memories. It wasn't just the surprise visit, it was the unexpected owl sighting and the way it connected them to their shared past. It added layers of meaning to an entire experience.
And that's the beauty of Saturday surprises. You never know what kind of magic will unfold when you step outside your comfort zone and embrace the unexpected. Another great example was the dad who surprised his kids with an impromptu trip to the fire truck museum, complete with a pizza buffet afterward.
Okay, that sounds like a recipe for a fun family outing. Did the kids enjoy it?
It was a mixed bag, which is actually quite realistic when it comes to family adventures. The younger kids were mostly indifferent to the fire trucks, but the oldest daughter was absolutely enthralled. And during the pizza buffet, the dad and his daughter bonded over their shared love of pizza and of all things olives.
It's amazing how those little moments of connection can emerge from the most unexpected places. It wasn't just about the fire trucks or the pizza, it was about finding that common ground and creating a shared memory.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even within a larger group experience, there can be those smaller, more intimate moments that make a lasting impact. Now, the guidebook doesn't just focus on family adventures. It also provides a lot of great advice on how to cultivate more meaningful friendships.
Because those connections are just as important as our family bonds, right? I mean, we all need our friends.
Absolutely. And just like with family moments, it's about being intentional and finding ways to create shared experiences that go beyond the ordinary.
So give us some examples. What are some ways the guidebook suggests we can deepen our friendships?
One idea that stood out was the concept of a dinner club with rotating courses and thought-provoking conversation prompts.
Now that sounds like my kind of dinner party. Explain how it works. I'm intrigued.
It's a great way to combine good food, good company, and meaningful discussions. Each person in the group is responsible for a different course, and they also bring a thought-provoking question or topic to discuss over dinner. It's a fun way to get everyone involved and to spark conversations that go beyond the usual small talk.
I love that. It's about creating a space for genuine connection and intellectual stimulation, and it takes the pressure off of one person to host and cook the entire meal. What are some other examples of how we can be more intentional about creating meaningful moments with our friends?
They also suggest setting a group goal, like climbing the office stairs every day during your lunch break. It's a fun way to foster camaraderie and celebrate milestones together.
That's a great idea. It's something small and achievable that you can do together, and it gives you a sense of shared purpose and accomplishment. Plus, it's good for your health.
Right. It's a win-win situation.
Mhm.
And it gives you something to talk about and bond over besides work. You can encourage each other, share tips, and celebrate your collective progress. And of course, we can't forget the roots potluck, where friends share dishes from their cultural backgrounds.
Oh, I'm definitely stealing that idea for my next gathering. It's such a creative and delicious way to learn about each other's heritage and share personal stories connected to food and family traditions. It's like a culinary journey around the world, but with your closest friends.
Exactly. It's a feast for the senses and the soul.
But beyond these specific activities, what are some of the underlying principles for building stronger bonds with friends? What are the key takeaways from the guidebook in terms of cultivating meaningful friendships?
The Heath brothers emphasize the importance of being responsive to each other's needs and milestones. It's about showing up for your friends, celebrating their successes, and offering support during challenging times. It's about being present in each other's lives, both physically and emotionally.
It's not just about having fun together, it's about being there for each other through thick and thin. It's about those deeper connections that make friendships so valuable.
Precisely. And they also talk about the importance of acknowledging moments when paths diverge. As we go through different stages of life, our friendships may evolve, but that doesn't mean they're any less important.
That's such an important point. It's natural for friendships to change over time, and it's okay to acknowledge those shifts. It doesn't mean the friendship is over, it just means it's entering a new phase.
Exactly. And it's about finding ways to stay connected even if our lives are taking us in different directions. Maybe it's sending a thoughtful text, scheduling a video chat, or making an effort to visit when you're in town. The key is to stay present in each other's lives, even if it looks different than it used to.
And sometimes it's about creating those intentional moments where you reconnect and reminisce about shared experiences. Like the guidebook suggests, you could revisit a favorite spot, try an activity you used to enjoy together, or simply spend an evening sharing stories and catching up.
Those moments of reflection and connection can be incredibly powerful. They remind us of the history we share and the bonds that tie us together, even as we navigate the ever-changing landscape of life.
This has been so insightful. I'm already thinking about all the ways I can apply these ideas to my own life. But before we move on, I want to circle back to the topic of transitions. We talked about coming of age rituals, but the book also touches on other types of transitions, like retirement, the end of a relationship, or even just starting a new job.
Yes, the Heath brothers talk about creating bridging ceremonies to mark significant changes. For example, at Montessori schools, they have these ceremonies where students literally or metaphorically cross a bridge to signify their transition to a new grade level.
What a cool idea. What's the reasoning behind that?
It's a way to acknowledge the milestone, create a sense of closure, and generate excitement for what's ahead. It helps the students process the change and feel a sense of accomplishment as they move on to the next chapter.
I love that. It's a simple but powerful way to make the transition feel special and meaningful. But what about transitions that are more difficult or unexpected, like the end of a relationship? Those can be tough to navigate. Does the book offer any advice on how to create moments of meaning during those challenging times?
It does. It
Oh,
might sound unconventional, but they actually mention an unwedding ceremony, which can be a beautiful way to honor the relationship and find closure. It's a space to acknowledge the love and shared experiences, as well as the pain of separation.
wow, that's profound. It's like a ritual for letting go and moving forward with grace and compassion. It's about acknowledging that even though the relationship is ending, it's still held value and meaning.
Exactly. It's about finding a way to honor the past while embracing the future. And on a lighter note, they also talk about creating peaks for colleagues who are retiring.
That's so important. Retirement is a huge life transition, and it deserves to be celebrated. What are some suggestions from the book on how to make a retirement memorable?
One example they give is to create a retrospective visual or audio presentation that highlights the person's contributions and celebrates their time with the company. It's a way to show appreciation and acknowledge the impact they've had.
I love that. It's a way to make their departure feel special and memorable rather than just another day at the office. And it gives their colleagues a chance to express their gratitude and well wishes.
Exactly. It's about creating a sense of closure and celebration for a new chapter in their life. And the Heath brothers encourage us to be mindful of those moments when our own routines shift, our priorities change, or we simply feel a sense of moving from one phase to another.
So it's not just about celebrating big life events, it's about acknowledging the smaller transitions that shape our journeys as well. Maybe it's starting a new job, moving to a new city, or even just changing our habits or routines.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that life is a constant flow of change, and finding ways to mark those transitions can help us feel more grounded and connected to our own experiences.
Okay, so as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, It seems like we've uncovered a wealth of ideas for making life's moments more meaningful, both big and small. And the best part is it doesn't require a lot of effort or resources. It's really about being intentional and finding creative ways to add a spark of meaning to our everyday lives.
That's the beauty of it. We all have the power to create those special moments that make life richer and more memorable. It's just a matter of shifting our perspective and making a conscious effort to inject a little bit of magic into the ordinary.
It really is, and I think one of the things that I really appreciate about the Heath brothers' approach is that they don't just focus on these grand gestures or like these big elaborate events.
Right.
It's really about finding those little moments, those everyday interactions,
Absolutely.
and elevating them, making them more special.
It's the little things that make a big difference.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the power of moments for friends and family, what are some key takeaways for our listener? What are some practical steps they can take to, start creating more meaningful moments in their own lives?
I think the first step is awareness.
Yeah.
Pay attention to those moments throughout the day that are sparking joy, that evoke laughter, that make you feel connected to the people around you, to the world around you.
Yeah, and really just being present in those moments
Yes.
rather than letting them slip away.
Not letting life just pass you by, but savoring those moments.
Exactly. And then once you start noticing those moments, like how can we amplify them? How can we make them even more special?
I love that word, amplify. Because, I think about, maybe it's a thoughtful gesture. Maybe it's a shared activity. Maybe it's just taking a moment to pause and really savor the experience.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't have to be anything, complicated or expensive. It's
Right.
really about the thoughtfulness and the intention behind it.
The intention, that's what matters most.
So, we talked about the power of surprise. We talked about, breaking the script. Are there any other sort of practical tips that come to mind as we think about, helping our listener create more of these moments?
Rituals and traditions.
Yeah.
Finding ways to mark transitions, to celebrate milestones, to create those shared experiences that foster that sense of connection and belonging.
Mm.
Whether it's, a weekly family dinner or a monthly game night with friends or, an annual trip to a special place, I think those rituals provide a framework
Right.
for creating those meaningful moments.
Yeah, they create a sense of anticipation and excitement, and, they give us something to look forward to.
And like we've been saying, don't be afraid to, break the script a little bit.
Yes.
Step outside that comfort zone. Try new things. Create opportunities for surprise and delight.
Routine is comforting, but it can also lead to stagnation. So shaking things up, even in small ways, I think, can really inject a much-needed dose of, energy and excitement into our lives.
Yeah.
And remember, you don't have to do this alone. Enlist the help of your friends, your family, brainstorm ideas together.
Collaborate.
Make it a collaborative effort.
Yes.
And, as we talked about earlier, storytelling is such a powerful tool, for creating connection and meaning.
So powerful.
So, encourage your loved ones to share their stories. Listen attentively. Create a space where everyone feels heard and valued.
Because stories help us to understand each other, to
Yeah.
empathize with each other, to build a shared history.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the power of moments for friends and family, we want to leave our listener with one final thought. The power to create a more meaningful life, it's within your grasp.
It is.
It starts with being intentional, with paying attention, with embracing the unexpected,
Yes.
and with, cherishing the moments, both big and small,
Both big and small.
that make life so rich and rewarding.
Beautifully said.
It's been such a pleasure, exploring these ideas with you, and we hope this deep dive has, inspired our listener to embark on their own journey of, creating a life that is filled with meaning and purpose.
Yes, I agree with that. And remember, even amidst the chaos and the challenges of everyday life, there is always room for joy, for connection, for those moments that make our hearts sing.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And to our listener, until next time, may your days be filled with moments that matter,